The best place to start would actually be price. How much are you paying for these two phones? The Spark 10 Pro costs either 104,500 Naira for the 8GB and 128GB of storage version, or 119,800 for more storage at 256GB, while the Galaxy A14 costs 116,900 Naira for 4GB of RAM and 64GB of storage, or 126,900 Naira for 128GB of storage. The Spark 10 Pro is not only cheaper, but it gives you more storage and RAM for that price. And to complete the knockout, Tecno gives you all of the accessories you need, while Samsung in the box only gives you a USB-C to USB-C cable, meaning you have to buy a USB-C charging brick if you don't have one. You also need to buy a case for the phone, even a screen protector, meaning at the end of the day, you're actually paying even more than that 127,000 Naira. Price and that value for price easily goes to the Spark 10 Pro. 1-0. Design is typically subjective. What you think looks nice might not look nice to me. So I'm just going to pick my own winner and then you tell me whether you agree or not. Both companies tried really hard to make their phones look more expensive. With Samsung, they made the A14 look like the S23s, their flagship, while Tecno made it look like the iPhone. I think everyone could see that. They both went with matte finishes, so good job to both of them. Tecno went with a frosted glass type finish on the rear, and Samsung went with a plastic back. But even with that, I would actually pick the A14's rear. The Tecno isn't bad, but I just prefer the back of the Samsung. But the front of the phones also matter, and I think everyone, including Samsung, can agree that the front design goes to the Spark. Samsung really fumbled. The A14 legit looks like it costs half the price of the Spark from the front. Super chunky bezels, and that dated teardrop notch is just ugly. I think Samsung takes the win for the rear design and Tecno for the front design. That makes it a tie. For the specs, on the Spark we have a 1080p 90Hz IPS LCD display, and on the A14 a 1080p 60Hz PLS LCD display. So the Spark has the higher refresh rates and should take the win. But how about the display quality? Well, I watched a couple of videos side by side and honestly they looked pretty similar on both. The only difference was that the Spark looked cooler while the A14's display was warmer, more true to life. Very subtle, but it's there. And I can say the same thing about brightness. It's really close, but the Samsung is just a tad bit brighter. Again, these differences are very subtle, but we are going to give display quality to the Samsung, but since the Spark has the smoother display, it also gets a point. I guess this makes it another tie. This is definitely the easiest one for sure. The A14 comes with Android 13 and One UI Core version 5.1 and should be getting 2 years of major Android updates. The Tecno, on the other hand, is also running on Android 13, but this time with iOS version 12.6, and I don't think it's going to get those 2 years of Android updates. In terms of how both softwares look, I think it's based on preference, but I actually prefer how One UI looks. The app drawer, the icons, the customizations you get. Like, even though this is the core version, you still get Material You, which I'm a big fan of. But it does have its negatives, like there is no smart view, there is no Bixby, and there is no native screen recorder. The Spark isn't even bad, especially after you've tweaked and deleted the pre-installed apps that bug you with notifications. It's a very stable software experience, and some people might actually prefer iOS to One UI. So it's not even the look that makes the A14 the winner for me, it's the 2 years of software updates. I think that is one major advantage that Samsung budget phones have over other budget phones. 2-2. Samsung's stuck with the same Exynos 850 processor from last year, and I actually feel like they might have improved it. And that's because the UI and animations are just more fluid to me. Maybe even more fluid than the Tecno. The Spark comes with a Helio G88 processor, and yeah, it has better single and multi-core test scores, also a better GPU, but I'll come to gaming in a bit. I just want to reiterate that the Spark 10 Pro comes with 8GB of RAM, which is 2 times what we have on the A14. And you also get up to another 8GB of virtual RAM. The A14, on the other hand, gets max 4GB of virtual RAM. So clearly, the Spark 10 Pro with its more RAM is significantly better when it comes to multitasking. And although these two chipsets are on the budget side, the Helio G88 is way better with gaming. Like, I'm not even that much of a gamer, but when I played FIFA Mobile on the A14, it was quite clearly not as good as that on the Spark. I don't know if it was the 60Hz display or the Exynos processor, but gameplay wasn't smooth. It skipped frames a lot, it was kind of choppy at times, but on the Spark, with the same network connection, it was much smoother, and I could actually win games with it. Now again, because these are budget phones, your expectations for performance and for gaming has to be realistic. But easy, if I had to pick between the A14 and the Spark 10 Pro, I would easily go with the Spark 10 Pro. 3-2. If the crown went to who has the better setup, then Samsung wins. The A14 comes with a triple camera setup, a 50 megapixel main, an ultra wide, and a macro sensor. While the Spark comes with 2 cameras, but only one works, really, and that's the 50 megapixel wide sensor. So we at least get an extra working lens on the A14. It's not as good, obviously, but with decent sunlight, you can actually get some pretty decent pictures with the ultra wide sensor. Now, pitting the main cameras together, you notice that they at times are very similar. I would like you to decide for yourself which one's better looking. For most of the pictures you're going to take, I feel like the difference would just be in level of saturation. The Spark seems to tone saturation up a little bit, and you might like that, and you might not. So again, let me know which you would pick in the comment section. For video, the Spark shoots in 2K as its max resolution, but sadly, even at 1080p, there is no stabilization. And that's the same case with the A14. They take photos better than they take videos, but again, do let me know what you think and which one's better looking in the comment section. But again, we are choosing a winner, so if I had to pick one, I'd actually go with the Samsung. They both have a 5000 mAh battery, but one is actually better, and that's the A14. Because it has a more efficient chipset in the Exynos 850, it ends up lasting longer than the Spark. I played FIFA Mobile for 30 minutes on both devices, and the Spark lost about 10%, while the A14 lost just 6%. They both have decent batteries, but the A14 would last like an hour longer from my testing. And when it comes to charging, the Spark 10 Pro supports up to 18 watts fast charging, and the Galaxy A14 supports up to 15 watts fast charging. But you don't get the charger in the box. So the Spark 10 Pro charges faster, but the A14 lasts longer. That's another tie. So we end up with both phones having 3.5 points. That's a tie. What does that mean exactly? Well, simply, the Spark does some things really well, and the A14 does some other things really well too. So the question now is, what do you care about? Like, what do you want a phone to do really well in? If you want a phone with the most amount of value for the money you're paying, then you're going with the Spark 10 Pro. If you want a modern looking, beautiful phone, I'll also recommend the Spark 10 Pro. The better display, performance, also gaming, well, the Spark 10 Pro. But if you want the better camera, better software experience, better battery life, then you're going with the A14. So now you have to tell me which phone would you pick, like literally in the comments. I hope you found this video helpful and it helped you decide which phone to get. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you when you see me.